We have so many options when it comes to the ways we can spend our money, and they're definitely not all good for us.
I would argue that it's not that the knowledge is inaccessible. It's more of like information paralysis.
That's Nate, and this is Money Questions.
That's Matt. This is Money Questions.
Money Questions will answer questions without a sales pitch.
Confidence, clarity, and some tools to make some important decisions.
This is season 2 of Money Questions.
It's wherever you get your podcasts. This is Money Questions, episode 2. I'm Nate. This is Matt.
We're going to talk about babies and what happens what happens to your bank account when you decide to have one.
That sounds lovely.
There is a flurry of emotions when you learn that you're going to be raising a child, or that you've made a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I doubt most people's mind goes directly to their finances. Mm-hmm. But just like all things money, it's going to affect you whether or not you think about it. And so when it comes to babies, your finances are something to think about, right?
Okay. Before we go too deeply into this episode, can we just have a couple disclaimers?
Yes.
You are a parent.
I am a parent.
I am not.
Nate is not. No, Nate is a dink or a dinkwad, double income.
No kids with a dog.
That's it. I have 2 boys, Lachlan, 9, and Gabriel, 13, with my lovely wife, Emily, and coworker.
Mm-hmm. This is right.
Anyhow, so we've got opposing kind of viewpoints when it comes to babies. It is scientifically impossible for either of us to make another baby.
This is very true.
I'll leave that to your imaginations. After I sent Nathan the script for this, he went and had a medical procedure done. So,
oh no!
That's why he's sitting slowly today. So, I don't know. I guess right off the top, the average cost of raising a child to 18 years old is hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh.
And it's I guess estimated that the first year alone can cost between $10,000 and $20,000, right? And so, over the next 15, 20 minutes, what we're going to try and do is kind of break down the biggest financial challenges you may face, or biggest financial considerations that you need to be making, and hopefully giving you a clear checklist in regards to how you can think about and discuss them with a financial professional.
Because it does sound like it's worth it. Just in my case, it's not for me.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Some of us would prefer to die alone.
Where do we start?
The challenge, the initial cash crunch. Or where do we start? I don't know. Do we start pre-baby? Because that can be expensive too.
It's funny that you're asking me where to start, but I think it's sort of like a 9-month ticking time bomb clock.
Yeah. Well, and in terms of like ordering a package, babies come with delivery costs, right?
That's a good way to think. That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah. Like there are one-time costs, deductibles, co-pays that need to be considered, right? Mm-hmm. I remember talking to you, and you were looking at it very much through a financial planning lens, right?
Yes.
And it was like talking about looking at your current healthcare insurance, like what you have coverage for.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's a really good place to start, just getting back to delivery costs, because I remember when Emily was pregnant, it wasn't until a month before delivery that it occurred to us that my healthcare insurance only covered shared hospital rooms. Mm-hmm. And it might sound luxurious to have a private hospital room, but I selfishly was thinking about the fact that I could be in the hospital for up to a week, sleeping in a chair.
Yeah, for a man in a previous career who spent a lot of time in hotel rooms, you wanted a place to sleep alongside your pregnant wife.
That's it.
That's fair. That's fair.
Or at least not with 4 other couples that were undergoing the same thing that we were undergoing. So, there's delivery costs that come along with having a baby. There's gear. There's a lot of gear, right? Like that, there's one-time purchases like car seats, strollers, cribs, baby carriers, right?
What's the room called that the kid grows up in?
The nursery.
Nursery. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
The shed. I honestly knew that. I was just playing dumb.
Yeah, okay. And there's a lot of different ways that people can go about kind of undertaking those initial one-time costs. But you don't have to buy a new crib and a new stroller. the one thing about secondhand baby stuff is a lot of it only gets used for 6 to 12 months before the baby outgrows it. So there's a lot of it out there to utilize, right? But I think one of the big steps that has to be taken right up front is to review your health insurance policy to know what your maximum, liability could be for hospital expenses that aren't covered by your insurance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? We're lucky here in Nova Scotia. We've got one of the best children's hospitals in the world. And that's where moms give birth, is inside that children's hospital, which makes a ton of sense. Believe it or not, one of the other best children's hospitals in the world is in Ontario, and it's Sick Kids. And the babies aren't traditionally delivered there. Right? It makes a ton of sense to me that they're delivered at the children's hospital here in Halifax, but that's not necessarily the case across the whole country.
So we've tackled the initial. It's not a cash crunch, but like the 9 months thought experiment of preparation for when the baby comes and what you need to have in place for when the baby shows up.
Yeah, and there's a lot there, right? Like to your point, the nursery, the crib, the furniture. There's a chair that's likely, to be nursed in.
Yeah.
That long hours are going to be spent in by mom,
Yeah, and these are all not news to me, but like I don't think of it that way. Like when I typically hear that like a kid is on the way, I'm like, okay, so like let's talk about EI parental leave. Let's talk about what benefits do you have in place through your employer for income continuance. Let's talk about emergency savings because there's a lot of unknowns, especially over that first year when you have a child.
That parental leave is a really big one.
It is.
And I don't think people realize how big it can be, right?
Yep.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like, what does that look like for?
I won't dive into like the specifics at all, but through like employment insurance, there is a certain proportion of your income that is insured by Human Resources and Skills Development Canada.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's a program in place to allow you to take time off work to raise a child.
Right. Tops up. It provides you an income up to a certain percentage.
Yeah, based on the income you were making while you were in the workforce. I find in a lot of conversations I have, they're like, "Oh, that's all that's going to come into the household."
Right.
And ideally, you're having that conversation 9 months, 6 months prior to the baby, and then that's when we, on top of budgeting, we're really focusing on those short-term cash flow needs, and we're really drilling down and focusing on emergency expenses. We were talking about this at lunch earlier, like not everyone has the ability to save up like a couple months of income in their checkings account.
No way. Yeah.
Just in case.
Right.
To sort of bridge the gaps as the income changes when they're off raising a child. If that's not the case, then it's a conversation about what low interest credit solutions you have available, like a line of credit sometimes helps. Ideally, you want to set that up while you have gainful employment to qualify for it. And as well as it's having a conversation with families, friends, grandparents for letting them know your situation and where you might need their help.
Yeah.
Because like I have a brother, he has 2 children, and my parents were amazing in helping during that time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and some employers will top up those employment insurance, those EI benefits for mat leave. And then I think one of the other new developments is a lot of workplaces are a lot more open to like a split maternity and paternity leave.
Yes.
Right. I have a friend right now who split the maternity leave with her husband just because it made sense financially. She was the primary breadwinner. He made a little less money, and so it was an opportunity for him to step away from work for a little while. Anyhow,
I think this is a good segue. Like we've talked a little bit about budgeting and cash flow, money in, money out, but there should always, prior to the baby shows up, there should be like a deep dive into employee benefits.
Yeah.
Like what you have available to you, how it works, and then figuring out like what's applicable to you and what is the next 6 months to a year and a half, 2 years look like
Totally.
from a monthly income and cash flow perspective.
Yeah.
And based on what you have available to you through your employer or for your family for support, sort of dictates how much time you can take off and when you might have to get back to work.
That's fair. Well, and it could also inform things you may need to pause, right? Like just today, I paused regular investment contributions for a couple that recently had a baby because their cash flow was a little tighter than expected.
Yeah.
And the $500 a month that they were putting towards retirement savings just didn't make sense right now. And so we made the decision just to turn off their contributions until they feel comfortable enough to kind of get back on it, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's not always potentially what's available to you, but maybe there's areas you can cut. And maybe there's areas you'll naturally cut back on, like, the dinner's out, probably going to go away for a little while, those kinds of things, right?
It feels like I would rely on Uber Eats.
Well, I think that's another cost to consider, right? When you're sleep deprived and you come home after a long day, or the baby's been screaming for 12 hours straight, you may not be in the mood to go to the grocery store and cook. So yeah, I think the convenience purchases can begin to add up.
Yeah.
You might go to the coffee shop just for a walk, or you might go and get takeout because you can't even think about cooking, right? Yeah. So those can be like secret killers. But yeah, I think a thorough review of your finances and the insurance available to you and what's going to be available to your child are a very practical step to take.
Let's talk a little bit about like once
once the baby's here.
Yeah, once the baby's here.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the future because
well, once baby arrives, so yeah, all those expenses apply once baby arrives. I think diapers are one that kind of catch people off guard.
Yeah.
You go through a lot of diapers. If you had to change a piece of cloth or a disposable fabric every time you went to the bathroom, it adds up, right?
Yeah.
And the alternative is maybe washing something every time you go to the baby goes to the bathroom, and that takes a lot of time and energy too, right? But I think one of the big things that get people is childcare expenses, right? A big reason Emily and I, my wife and I, moved from Toronto to Halifax about 13 years ago was because Emily wanted to be a full-time mom, and we couldn't afford to do that in Toronto because it was just so expensive to live in the city at the time. So we both needed to work, and in order for us to have childcare for her to work, we were looking at $1,300 a month, right? And it's more now, right? And so the prospect of having more than one child was just unfathomable. And so moving to Nova Scotia meant that our housing costs could be such that one of us could work and one of us could stay home. And so that worked. And I don't even think that exists here anymore because of the cost of living and how inflated things have become, right?
Not in the current economic climate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the parental leave gap is another thing that we touched on, right? And so, with one parent off work on a reduced income, that's going to be a squeeze on the household, right?
Yeah, aside from all those things, like there's a conversation associated with risk. Identifying the risks within the next 18 to 25 years of raising said child.
Yeah.
And knowing those risks and knowing which ones you can and cannot control. I always like to have conversations when there's always a conversation about risk when a working employee, like a working individual, has other people like financially dependent on them. We're talking about job stability. We're talking like emergency savings rate, like
the health insurance that comes with that job. Yeah.
Yeah, but like what happens if you can't go to work? Like protecting your ability to earn an income, like understanding the benefits you have, like if you get hurt or you get sick, how soon does it take before it's a detriment to your household finances?
Certainly.
Like, do you understand how employment insurance works, like short-term, long-term disability through your employer, if you have it, workman's compensation? Do all those programs that are in place for you, does that cover off the risk? If it doesn't cover off the risk, what is can you afford to leave it at that? Or do you need to look at like external solutions in order to protect yourself and your family?
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's sort of it's the insurance conversation within a comprehensive financial plan.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
what risks are you able to bear?
Yeah, and I would say, having a child is probably one of the life events that leads directly into the insurance conversation because of the fact that there's someone else relying on you.
Yes.
And it might be it's different because that someone else that's relying on you doesn't have an ability to earn income without you either, right?
That's right.
And it's a little different than a working spouse, for example, right? And so that insurance conversation then maybe leads to the thought, okay, well, what kind of life do I want this child to have if I'm no longer here or no longer able to function in the way that I'm functioning today?
Yeah, because like a lot of people that have group benefits have some sort of minimum level of life insurance.
Right.
There's a life insurance component, and sometimes it's called an AD&D top-up, accidental death and dismemberment. It's sort of like a lottery insurance if you get hit at the crosswalk. All those things exist within that type of insurance you have through your employer. It's understanding how those work and the tax-free benefits that they pay, and is that enough that if you weren't around providing an income for your household, does that allow you, like not you because you've now deceased, your spouse and your children to maintain a certain lifestyle that you want them to lead?
Yeah.
And then you have some good examples of both spectrums of said lifestyle.
Oh yeah, right. Like there's those out there that just don't pay it any mind and they don't really consider it. Maybe they just the imagination isn't there for them to consider the scenario where they pass away and their loved one has to sell the home. Then they have to rent somewhere else because they can't afford the payments or the purchase of a new home. And their lifestyle has to dramatically change as a result of someone losing their life or their job or something, right?
Right.
It was my attitude that I wouldn't want my wife to have to worry about the mortgage payments. I would want the house to get paid for, all the debts to get paid off, and perhaps there be a contingency amount for the kids to be able to go to post-secondary school, right?
Yeah.
Cover the basics at the very least and cover them well, right? But then I had a conversation with another couple.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, with 3 kids, and our initial conversations around how they wanted to kind of structure their estate plan was that they weren't really interested in buying any additional insurance. We were just kind of covering all the options together, but they said they weren't really interested in any additional insurance. They felt the home and their investments would cover everything, but in the same breath, they didn't want the other spouse to move if they passed away, and they wanted their kids to be set for life, right? And so that would involve a very specific kind of undertaking from a licensed insurance professional to go through what exactly that looks like, right? So I said at the end of that conversation, it's like, from what you guys have said about insurance and from what you'd like to see if one of you passed away, there's a mismatch there. Like if you want your kids to be set with what you currently have, you would need to have insurance, right?
My head immediately jumps to, like, I would never want my spouse to know that I'm worth more dead than alive.
Fair, right? Yeah. So it's a big consideration, right? Maybe drawing up a will in that same vein becomes really important once there are kids in the picture.
Well, yeah. Any time there's sort of that significant life event is a time to review all those legal documents that cover off the risks if you're not there.
That's it.
Like, what do you want to have happen if you pass away prematurely?
Yeah, because if you don't consider it and mom and dad die in a car crash, and then the state is essentially left to decide what happens with the kids. Right. And it's not a well-funded system, and it's not always providing for ideal outcomes, And so I think most parents would like to direct who would care for their kids in case they both died.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's where a will and guardianship becomes really important and getting that laid out.
And that's the document where all that's captured.
That's it.
After you get consent from the people that you want to look after your kids if you were no longer here.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
My first choice probably wouldn't be interested in caring for my kids, right? But anyways, and then I think as the kids get older, there's all kinds of things to consider, right? There's, there's camps. Like my wife and I spend, a healthy amount of money every summer on camps for the kids just to keep them busy. Those camps are tax deductible, so it's kind of nice, but it's still a large out-of-pocket expense, right? They grow a lot, so they need clothes often, right? They eat a lot, so the fridge has always got to get stocked up. And those are kind of basic things, but I think, longer-term planning in regards to their education savings, for example, is something that doesn't get considered very frequently, right?
I guess I would say to that, a lot of the times children take the priority when it comes to household finances. Like you want to give the world to your kids, and sometimes it's at the detriment of your future self.
Yeah.
So I think it's more critically to understand the money coming into the household and what you have to spend within your budget on certain things for said children. And depending on that budget, maybe your kids can't go to summer hockey camp. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
Otherwise, like you're extending your retirement date from 65 out to 70.
Yeah.
I'm saying that because I've seen it happen, and I don't like saying it, but it's really important to like have those conversations about understanding your financial priorities and what you're doing and how it affects your future self.
Yeah, for sure. This was a really simple idea that someone gave us when we had a baby, but we lived in like a really tiny apartment in Toronto. It wasn't a tiny apartment; it was a stacked townhome, but it was like there was 300 square feet on each level,
Yes.
So it was just a very spread out 900 square feet. It was tight, like you got privacy when you close the door in the bathroom, and that was about it. But one concern we had, because lots of cousins and brothers and sisters and people in our lives that had kids in big families, like you'll walk into a living room and you literally can't step anywhere because there's toys everywhere, right? And so we had that fear when we had our child living in a 900 square foot stacked townhome. And so one thing that we did at the suggestion of a friend with a child was to reach out to our family and say, Gabe's first birthday is coming up. We know you want to spoil him. You always have, and we love that about you, and we love that for him. But what would really be meaningful is if you contributed to his RESP, right? Like,
And for those who don't know, it's a registered educational savings plan.
Yeah.
And the best thing about them for all Canadians is the government will match a portion of the money you save.
Amazing.
And
right?
then, do we have an episode on compounding or something?
Yeah, we do.
Listen to that and you'll understand.
Yeah. No, it gives you the ability to save a lot of money well in advance for a child's education in a tax efficient way. And there's great government benefits that kick in alongside it, like Nate mentioned, like some matching, right?
Yes. Depending on your household income.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it. So anyways, these are just some of the things that I think parents can do to protect their future and their children's future when they find out they're having a baby. Now, this is all well and great for people that plan on having a baby, but just as a little aside, when we were preparing for this, I just kind of Googled like how many pregnancies in Canada are actually planned for, and it turns out that it's only about 50% of pregnancies in Canada that are planned for, that has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that you don't always get to plan for these things.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think you should feel badly if you don't get all these things in place, because that's just how life is sometimes.
Yeah.
This is a very ideal situation where you're planning to have a child, you have a child, and everything goes as planned.
Yeah.
That's just not how life works a lot of the time.
Yeah, because like if you're hyper organized, there's always the opportunity to have an excellent plan, but in reality, you're just trying to get to good enough.
Yeah.
So we're sitting here in the podcast studio trying to get a little guidance about how to close out this episode. And we're going to call out Reese is usually like in our ear because he slipped out to get his kids.
There you go. Unexpected stuff happens all the time.
That's right.
Right? If you add kids to the mix, it's even crazier. All right? Yeah. Well, so maybe in conclusion or as a final checklist, we could recap, first and foremost, it's important to review your cash flow.
Yeah, just understand your cash flow
Yeah.
and what benefits you're entitled to from your employer through employment insurance benefits, the Canadian child benefit going forward after the baby's born. Just understand those how those work. CRA's tools, like the government's tools, are getting better to help you figure that out on your own. But at any point that it's confusing or Greek to you, like reach out to a financial professional because they know how to navigate it and provide some good advice.
Absolutely. Figure out what you're working with. Once you've figured out what you're working with, you can start kind of thinking through what some of those initial costs are going to be.
Yeah. And depending on your financial goals, if it's the summer hockey camp or if it's retiring at 65, it's understanding where you go from that budget into your short-term, mid-term, long-term financial goals within a financial plan.
Absolutely. And then, just as important, securing your future, both yours and the child's future through things like potentially additional insurance, perhaps a will, and things like registered education savings plans, right? And then even beyond that, right? Like I've got a little brokerage account for each of my boys, just because when they're a certain age, I want to say, hey, I put a few $1,000s in this account for you when you were 5, and it's now worth X, and that's the power of compounding. And I'm going to give this to you, but the rule is you can't touch it.
Right.
I want you to allow it to continue to compound.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah. There's all kinds of things you can.
So I think all we're trying to understand is say over these 15 minutes or so is understand your household cash flow. Take the time to really understand the risks to yourself and your household, and think about your future self.
That's it.
Alongside of raising a child, because it looks hard.
There's no doubt about it. And this is just the money side, right? There's the emotional side. There's the family side. There's just so many facets to it, like life, right? And
Yes.
It's terrifying and wonderful and exhausting and fulfilling all at the same time, right?
But that's why behavioral finance is fun.
Yeah. So if you think this is information that could help a loved one, a friend, or just someone and then flip it over to them. Our goal here is to kind of arm you with a framework to think through these life events and help the people around you, and just improve your financial well-being overall, and those and that of those around you, right?
Yeah. Like, share, comment.
Smoke signals. Listen and subscribe to Money Questions wherever you get your podcasts.